Hi guys, this is chapter 10 and we're going to talk about just a few things about biotechnology. So not the whole chapter, just a few parts of it. So we're just going to talk about cloning and genetic engineering. We're going to talk about how biotechnology is used in medicine, specifically a little bit of gene therapy, and then what transgenic animals and plants there are. All right, so cloning. The most famous, I think probably story of cloning was Dolly the sheep. And Dolly the sheep was the first cloned animal. So how that worked was you have one sheep who is a donor of the egg. Okay, so this is the egg. And they took the nucleus out of the egg. So no genetic information, but everything else. Then they took mammary cells. So these are cells from Dolly's udder. Okay. And they put the cells from her udder together with the empty egg, and then they zapped it, kind of like Frankenstein. So they zapped it, they got these guys to fuse, and so we have an egg that has the diploid set of cells from Dolly. So then it began to divide and divide and divide, and they got it to a certain stage where they could implant it into a surrogate, and then out came Dolly. So Dolly is a DNA clone of this sheep right here. Okay, so Dolly was the first cloned animal. And it shows that it's possible to do this. Now, Dolly was pretty healthy, but I think that she also gave birth to a little sheep. But Dolly didn't live a whole lifespan. There were some problems, but this is the first example of cloning. All right, then gene therapy. Gene therapy is a process where you use some kind of vector. This is showing you a virus, but we need something to carry DNA that has been modified, right? So this virus has the viral DNA and it has a new gene, right? This new gene is what we want to deliver to the cell. And one of the things we talked about hemoglobin and sickle cell anemia. Remember, sickle cell anemia was just like one letter mistake. One amino acid was changed. So they can put in the correct gene for that hemoglobin protein and then put it in the virus. And viruses, what they do is they bind to cells, they infect the cells, they go in. And then certain viruses will also come into the nucleus and then put their DNA they incorporate it into the host DNA. So this vector happens to be adenovirus. This is a virus that can cause the common cold, but it is genetically modified to not cause harm. Okay, so it should not give you the cold or anything, but it should deliver the new genes and incorporate it into the genome, and hopefully, right, your cells will recognize that and then start to make the new hemoglobin protein. So, you could be cured from sickle cell anemia. Okay, so gene therapy can be done two ways. We just looked at this. All right, so we have a viral vector, and then we have there's two kinds of vectors. A vector is just something that takes the gene and puts it into your body. So there's a gene of interest. We put the gene of interest in the vectors, and then those vectors will carry that new information into the cells. There's another way of doing it where you can extract the cells from the body. We can add the modified cells, modify those cells and then get them to grow. So we get a collection of modified cells and put those cells back into the person. So it's the person's cells that have been modified going back in. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. And it's being used right now. So there are clinical trials already on sickle cell, hemophilia. They're trying to get your cells to kill cancer cells or get the virus to kill cancer cells, but just cancer cells, okay? And so the advantages of gene therapy and some disadvantages. The advantages is that it's a very useful, versatile tool, and it can prevent or treat or cure complex diseases such as vision loss, cancer, blood disorders, spinal muscular atrophy. They are often individualized, increasing the possibility of success, because sometimes they need to use your cells, right? And they could cure as little as in one treatment. So this is really, really good. There are some disadvantages. The efficacy of therapy with AAV, which is the adenovirus we looked at, are dose dependent, and higher doses may cause adverse effects. Safety concerns due to gene integration. So we don't really know. In this kind of format, they're getting better with the whole CRISPR introduction, but there's some concern over, like, if you're going to insert that gene into a place that is not wanted, like in the middle of another gene, that would be bad. Certain treatments are not permanent and would need to re-administer to maintain the effectiveness. And then down here, which I think is probably the most crazy, is that it can be expensive in the US and cost anywhere from $373,000 to $2.1 million per treatment. Okay, so it's kind of a long way off for the general public taking gene therapy, but they are working on it. These are some common animal models for basic science. Remember, basic science, this is the one where you have a lab scientist, they're just trying to answer a question. They're doing a lot of research, and then sometimes they need to use animals, right? And then see if the first step is to test in animals, the second step, maybe larger animals, and then humans. So a mouse, these are fruit flies, Drosophila melanogaster. This is a tiny worm. This is probably as big as like a grain of rice or something. They're really small. Normally it's just like, they call it C. elegans. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, this is yeast. And then we have a flower. So these are really, really common, well-known models for genetics. All right, so we're going to talk about GMOs. GMO stands for genetically modified organisms, and their organisms have been manipulated. That's the thing, okay? They have been manipulated artificially using genetic engineering techniques in a way that doesn't occur naturally via recombination or natural breeding. And these changes can change their morphology, so how they look, their physiologies, like what kind of chemical reactions, what kind of things that they can do, or biochemistry, right? What kind of chemicals they make. There's another term out there called transgenic organisms. So transgenic organisms are specifically where you have DNA from another species, okay? So this previous one, GMOs, you can modify the genetics of an animal or a plant, but not introduce something from another species. So you might just manipulate this bacteria with another bacteria species, or manipulate its own genome. Same thing here, right? You can just have modified mouse, but you're not introducing a foreign piece of DNA from another species. But transgenic does. Transgenic is a word used to say that we are going to take, we looked at these guys, right? This green fluorescent protein was actually from a jellyfish. So that's a different species that we're putting in. And then this is a picture of corn. There's a certain kind of corn called BT corn we'll look at that gets a gene from a bacteria or bacterium. Okay, so we can also use biotechnology to help us make products for, to enhance the world and to make us not so dependable on fossil fuels. So this is an example of scientists using, so the CRISPR, this is the gene editing process that's new, and scientists are very excited about this because it makes gene editing very easy. So they can edit genes in bacteria or microalgae, helping them turn sunlight and carbon dioxide directly into fuel. And this is a picture of a bioreactor, which is basically something that will grow tons and tons and tons of this algae so that we can extract the fuel. Plant oils, they are altering plants such as pennycress or corn to boost the amount of oil so that the plants can make more oil for energy. And then some other microbes are being genetically engineered to break down really tough plant waste like cellulose and wood chips into sugars that are easily fermented into fuel. Okay, so lots of different kinds of research out there to hopefully get us away from fossil fuels. And this is a picture from your book. It's just showing you that the fuels were tested in the Navy. And so it is basically an ongoing research project, and hopefully it can be upscaled to something where it's usable for the whole sort of normal people and not the Navy. And then lastly, we're talking about genetically modified foods. So there are some transgenic, or there's not some, there's a lot of transgenic agricultural plants. And usually what they want to do is they need to grow enough food for the whole population. So they want to make the plants very hardy, very resistant to bugs, and maybe even like choose the ones that grow the best fruit and see what genes are can be modified to make really good fruit, consistent good fruit. And these plums are resistant to the pox virus. So there's a plum pox virus. We've heard of monkeypox, right? There's a plum pox. So they're resistant to that. This is the BT corn. So this is called BT corn because BT stands for Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a bacterium, okay, that produces these protein crystals that are toxic to many insect species that feed on plants. So the bacteria is making this crystal. It's toxic to bugs. So the insects that have eaten BT toxins stop feeding on plants within a few hours. So it's a very useful protein that will stop bugs from eating plants. And so there has been really large scale infestations of a certain beetle called a stem borer infestation. So this stem borer you can see here, it comes into the stem of the plant and it kind of just, as it says, it bores into it and basically kills the plant. And so this image of people in Kenya, it's basically corporate and public researchers. They're trying to help the Kenyans raise corn that won't be destroyed by this bug. So they put that gene for that protein crystal into the corn, and now the corn makes that crystal, and any bug that comes and eats the corn will not like that, right? It's toxic to the beetles, and they will not destroy the corn. And then just lastly, I just wanted to introduce some common genetically modified organisms that you know, right? So these are out there right now. Canola, like the canola oil plant. This is the, different names that they go by. But they modified the fatty acids. They are modified it to be herbicide and to have an herbicide and antibiotic resistance. There's male sterility. This is so that there's no pollen and they can just like keep the corn, genetically modified corn in its place, because if corn made pollen, then it could like blow in the wind to other fields, and then you get an increased yield, more corn. Beans, viral disease resistance, eggplants, insect and antibiotic resistance, potatoes out there, insect and antibiotic resistance, modified sugars and carbohydrates, disease resistant to viruses, and reduced acrylamide potential. This is, so when potatoes go bad, they start to make this acrylamide, which is not so good for you. And I was told once by a professor never to eat green potatoes, which I do anyway, but then those are kind of going bad. Soybeans are modified, sugar beets are modified, sugar cane, tomatoes, papaya. So there's a lot of foods out there. There's apples that have been genetically modified to not brown when you cut them open. There's maize or corn, right? Lots of things that corn has gotten genetically modified for, right? So multiple insect resistance, herbicide tolerance. Herbicide tolerance means that if you wanted to, raise corn and you don't want weeds, you would spray the ground for weeds, right? You want to kill the weeds. So this makes those corn plants tolerant to the herbicide, so they don't get killed by the herbicide. Rice, and then we have goats, chickens, salmon, fish, and pig. These all are increased growth in unfavorable clinical conditions, and sometimes they'll use these animals to make medicinal components. There's one story of us. Oh no, that's a different story. Okay, anyways, that's it. It's very, very short, but just some concepts for you to know.